There is a lot to cover today when it comes to this episode of Mushoku Tensei. To the controversy with Juliet at the end of the episode, to Rudy thinking that he's now attracted to guys, to also miscellaneous things that's going behind the scenes with certain setups and characters, to also the blossoming friendship of Zenoba and Rudy. It's a legitimately good episode, and that's not even including this scene that I'm about to talk about, that really just, I might be looking too deep into it, but it's a legitimately great frame that it really stood out to me when I was watching this episode, because the message really conveys a lot. Like, it conveys, like, how Rudy is right now in comparison to Fitz or Sylphie, how Rudy probably feels about Fitz, but also, just everything about it. I don't know, the way this was drawn, I feel like the animators and artists, they knew what they were doing. And so, let's dive headfirst into this scene first, before I get into the controversy. So, basically, Rudy here is standing behind Fitz, or Sylphie, and he's standing on square stones that's just slightly above the water, and then you see the stone bridge that Fitz is obviously standing on right here, and then you see the sun kind of going down or setting, or, whatever, depending on whatever word you want to use. The point is that, Rudy is kind of staring at the back of Fitz in this moment. He doesn't realize it's, Sylphie, but basically he looks at, Fitz as someone that is inspiring, someone that is really good at things, someone that gets his heart racing, not just in a romantic way, but just someone that really does inspire him. And just by the very first half of this episode, it really showcases that Rudy, holds Master Fitz in very high regard. And seeing this scene is like Rudy's looking at the back of Sylphie like, I want to be able to follow you, I want to be able to catch up to you one day. And that the level that Fitz is currently at is above Rudy. Not by much, but still kind of above him because of the way the bridge is to where the stones are. But also, we can kind of look at this in terms of the life, of these two individuals and kind of what they've been through. Now, once again, this could be me looking a little bit too deep into it, but you gotta look at this, okay? Like, a paved road is very symbolic for, like, if the road is paved and nice and clean, it's probably a simple path. But if it's a dirt path with a bunch of weeds, sticks, and trees falling on the road, it's a very hard path to go down. And when you look at these two pathways, obviously Rudy has to step over water, little hurdles, so to speak. Nothing too crazy, but hurdles to walk over to get to his destination, and sometimes you stop in your destination upon these hurdles to be able to just take a look at your life, where you're going right now. And in this case, you have the bridge that Fitz is walking over. And obviously, it's very well paved, it's very simple, it's slightly uphill, but nothing too crazy. It's a gradual slope. And I do like this message here. Like I said, I could be looking too deep into it, but it kind of showcases what, probably Sylphie's been through, but also what Rudy's been through, or at least how he views himself. He views that probably, like, he is lower than Fitz in this moment. He's had a life that, is very rocky or shaky, and, he's not lived probably the best life, he probably feels like he could live a better life, while Fitz probably has lived a very glorious and noble life. Just everything about the scene, it's really good. I don't know, I like the scene, and I just, when I watched it, it really stuck out to me. Like, I was just like, this is pretty good. But okay, let's stop with that. Let's, talk about some other things. For instance, Rudy gaining feelings for Sylphie or Fitz. Because I want to clarify a few things, okay? Once again, I need to state this because this is definitely something that's going to irk a lot of people. Manga readers, light novel readers, and anime onlys. It irks everybody when stuff like this happens in stories, but we got to put ourselves in the shoes of Rudy as a character and Sylphie as well, and what's going on within this story right now. Remember, years have passed since Rudy has literally spoken to Sylphie, okay? And the last time he saw Sylphie is when she was literally like 7 or 6 years old, okay? And she had green hair. Maybe her hairstyle hasn't changed much besides the hair color, but she's gotten taller. She has definitely gotten more feminine, so to speak, at least in the way she, acts and how she presents herself to some degree. And she's just an entirely different person. The way Rudy views, Sylphie or Fitz in this moment, it's an entirely different person to him, because the way Sylphie acts is very different to how Sylphie was as a kid. Because as a kid, she was very meek, kind of quiet. She did speak to Rudy a little bit, but overall, she was someone that was very distant, or she was always chasing after the curtails of, Rudy throughout her early stages of her life. And in this case, you see that Fitz is being able to do all these powerful things by herself, or his self in this case. That's what Rudy sees. And, that's just what he sees. And so it makes a lot of sense. It's like they're entirely two different people, but it also showcases how much Sylphie has grown as a character, and it's just been a long time. It's been a long time since he, saw Sylphie. And since, obviously, Fitz or Sylphie's not saying, oh, I'm actually Sylphie, Rudy has no reason to believe it's actually Sylphie. That's a big thing. Now, here's another thing. Another element to kind of throw into this is that, just a lot has happened to Rudy. Like, ever since, he left, his town, he met Eris, he met, Ghislaine, he, met, the Grey Rats, he went to the Demon Continent, he met Ruijerd, he met the Dragon God, he's seen a lot of stuff, and when you have all these things going on in your life in these few years, you're going to have some blurred memories, especially in the early stages of your life when just all these crazy things keep happening. So yeah, there is a lot to really take in, and I feel like that needed to be pointed out. But anyways, back into the big point. Rudy obviously is getting attracted to Fitz, and he even points that out. He's like, am I actually attracted to guys now? He was a little bit shocked. And, regardless of how funny it is, etc., and maybe annoying to some people because obviously can't tell that Fitz is actually Sylphie, you gotta remember Rudy, when he met Sylphie, he thought Sylphie was also a dude. Remember that. That was literally how his relationship with Sylphie started in the beginning of the series, Season 1. So, it's just kind of a retelling of that event, showcasing just the differences, but also the similarities of the characters. So, I like it. I don't know. I think it's good for development as well, showcasing how these two don't really, Sylphie isn't as dependent on Rudy as she once was. That's another way to look at it, too. Now, anyways, let's go into the actual other stuff of this episode, which is Zenoba and also getting to see, Rudy's relationship and how they're kind of getting, I guess more acquainted with each other. Like, they're getting, becoming better friends. I love this. It's a very sweet and bonding moment because if there's one thing that's really been missing in Rudy's life, and you gotta really think about this, okay? He's been really missing a good friend. Like, okay, yes, Ruijerd was there, Eris was there, Ghislaine was there when he was growing up with Eris. He's had a few people in his life, but he's never had someone around his similar age and having similar fascinations to things like him, and maybe even more of a fascination for things to him, for instance, figures. And I think that, this is a very important moment for Rudy to really expand his horizons, besides just obviously always chasing after a girl, or doing an adventure, or just having combat or learning magic. Him being able to just have a straight-up personal conversation with someone and talk about things is very important for someone. And Zenoba obviously is an individual that actually does showcase this, that Rudy is gaining a friend, someone that respects him, and Rudy obviously is growing to respect him as well. And I like that. I think it's a very beautiful friendship that's being formed here, and it just, I love seeing it. I absolutely love seeing it. And the way the VA of Zenoba delivers his lines is just so eccentric and so great. I cannot stop smiling when I see him on screen. Now, before I get into the controversy, I want to talk about the name that was chosen for the dwarf, aka Juliet, or Julie. He was actually going to name Julie, or Juliet, after his deceased brother. That's what Zenoba was going to do. And we kind of find out that the brother that was deceased, it was a kind of a reminder, honestly, is that he's the one that killed his younger brother accidentally. Because, he was too strong. He's a blessed child, he has too much strength. And he obviously, with this moment, even if he doesn't directly state it, he does not say it, it's clear for him to even want to use the name of his deceased brother, how he views his deceased brother, but also how he wants to respect Julie or Juliet. It shows that he wants to view them like a sibling, wants to view them as a family member, and he harbors some emotion. He feels responsible for the death of his sibling at his own hands. So yeah, there's a lot there. It really builds upon Zenoba's character without really directly stating it. Without stating, oh, he feels guilty or anything. It just, him even mentioning that shows he wants to honor his deceased, sibling. So yeah, I like that. Now, let's get into the controversy. So, yeah, there's, obviously elements within this episode that are going to be, upsetting for a lot of people because, Rudy, Fitz, Zenoba, they go to a market to buy someone. And clearly, they are searching for an individual that can be able to use their hands to create figures. And when you think about just the overall motivation and the goal, there's a lot of controversy there. And I'm not going to act like, this is a good or bad thing, whatever. I'm not getting into that. I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. I'm not doing it. But the point of the matter is that Mushoku Tensei is set in medieval times, ancient history, so to speak, and, dark, bad, gruesome, and disgusting things happen. It does. And obviously, in this world, it happens. And pretty much, despite obviously everything that is obviously gross about certain things, Rudy didn't want to force this girl into something she didn't fully want. For instance, when he walks up to her in this moment, he's like, look, you look like a face that wants to die. Your eyes say that. It looks like you just don't want to live anymore. And the reason why he says that is because he was like this. Like, when he was, in his other life, he had no purpose. He felt he had no purpose, and he just wanted to die. That's it. He had no reason to keep moving forward. And in this case, when he sees Juliet, he views the exact same person. Like, it's like, oh, this is just me in a different body, so to speak. And so he gives Juliet a choice. Do you want me to end it? And obviously this was a very big moment for Rudy's character because we know he doesn't like to kill people, but we also know that he is an individual that, doesn't want to see someone suffer just in a very similar way as him. And so because of that, it's like, look, as much as I want someone to probably make figures or whatever, that's not important. So taking a step back from what I just said and just what Rudy said, Juliet's decision, and all that, we need to take a look at this scene right here and kind of the life that Juliet, or Julie, is currently living. She has better clothes on that are very clean in comparison to what she was wearing. She obviously got to eat a lot, and, she was malnourished. She's learning to read. She's learning magic. It's very clear when you just look at her previous situation, and when you look at this situation, she's living a much better life. She is definitely not living in darkness and complete despair as she once was, even though the circumstances and events leading up to this point to get her here was not, it was gross to a degree. The point of the matter is that it is still a better life that she is living right now. And I do want to also talk about Rudy's decision and what he said to her. For instance, him even giving the initiative and saying, like, oh, do you want to live or do you want to die? That moment really showcased a lot of Rudy's character, is that, he didn't want to force this little girl to do anything that she didn't want to do. And if she didn't want to live, he wasn't going to force her to go down that path. And so he asked a very serious question in a different language for nobody else could even understand. As like, do you want me to end it? And she obviously said, I don't want to die. She didn't say I want to live, but she said, I didn't want to die. Which is a very big detail about this whole event, is that there is more for her to grow, but she is not completely out of despair yet. There is still darkness lingering on within her, but she did reach out a hand for help. And that's a big detail, is that Rudy understands that as much as people want to help you, they will not be able to help you unless you want help. Rudy was in a very similar circumstance in his previous life, is that he had a lot of darkness, he was someone that was alone, he didn't have anything basically, and, as much as people tried to help him out, his parents and friends and all that, it was very clear that, he didn't want their help. He didn't reach and grab their hand. And so there's no point in trying to help someone if they don't want to help themselves. And since Julie actually said, I don't want to die, it implied that, yes, please help me. And so Rudy is trying to help her. So yeah, there's, like I said, a huge takeaway from the episode that kind of correlates with Rudy's origin of his character, and I like that. But I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm going to say right now, though, next episode is going to be way more controversial than this episode. It's going to be night and day, and I'm curious to see on how people are going to react to it. But if you enjoyed the video, do leave a like. It does help me out a lot. And with that, be safe, stay healthy, Chibi out.